Welcome to Caribbean Wellness. I am Demming. We focus on emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Our guest today is Keron Rose. Keron, tell me something about your background.
I'm Keron Rose, 35 years old. I grew up in Canada, been in Trinidad and Tobago for 8 years now. Boy, has the time flying. It still feels like it's been about 3. Right now, my focus is really on helping Caribbean entrepreneurs, build their businesses online and navigate this entire digital crazy age that we are in. So that's.
And how do we raise awareness with regard to mental health?
I think the starting point is to have these types of conversations because we don't tend to have the conversations. And when the talk of wellness does come into play, it's usually on the negative side. Usually somebody's had some meltdown in a big way. It's made the news. And at that point, we're talking about wellness, usually as a repercussion of something else, but not, on a day-to-day spectrum and in a form that it doesn't have to lead to that. So I think the starting point to raise the awareness is have these conversations. I would also say, I think people are looking for these resources online. This is one of the reasons why, from a technical standpoint, I got into SEO, because we get to tap into the data. What are people looking for in any related niche? So we can actually see what are the conversations, what are the questions, the problems that people are asking around mental health, and then start to create the resources, create the content. That way, when they do go looking for it, they are seeing the resources available. And again, we don't get enough Caribbean information. We still get a lot of information from other markets. So we definitely have to change that and be present when people are searching for it.
What should be happening in the Caribbean for us to come up a little more in that space of technology?
So for one, the platforms that are trying to push out information, mental illness, should have basic things like having their website, learning a bit of best practices around search engine optimization. That way they know how to do market research to see exactly what are people searching for on Google, what are they searching for in relation to mental wellness. That way you could look at the data, see how many times it's searching, how many times it's being searched for, what countries in the Caribbean are searching for it. That way you could tailor your ads, that way it hits its intended market, and just ensure that your content you are creating is aligned, that you are giving the people what they're looking for, because they are searching for mental wellness topics.
Do you have any experience with mental wellness? Any of your friends have had any issues?
Yeah, I think, to me, I want to say funny story, but it's not a funny story. But funny story is, I think prior to 2018, whenever I seen the topic of mental wellness being brought up, I kind of compartmentalized that as that is like issues that you can see. So if there's somebody with Tourette's or somebody with that, like visible things, that was what mental health was to me in my books, right? Because I never really had, I had a great uncle who had Down syndrome, but I wasn't raised around him. He lived in Trinidad. I grew up in Canada, and by the time I moved here, he had passed away. So I never really had anybody around me with it. And it wasn't until 2018 with a person very close to me where they were manic, had manic episodes, bipolar, and that led them into St. Anne's. So going through the situation of going to the hospital with that person, into Mount Hope, seeing a psychotherapist, seeing all the medical history coming out, seeing like this was like a completely different person who I thought I knew, but just seeing them in that space and then having to go through the whole procedure with St. Anne's. After that moment, I knew that mental health was real. It is a thing. They are a high functioning manic and bipolar person. So when they're not going through their episodes, you would never know. So at that point for me, having that moment, that solidified in my mind that no, this is real and I need to educate myself on it. And again, it just opened my mind up, entire thing of mental health.
That's such a great experience. And the fact that you have come out of it with an understanding that mental wellness is a real issue. And many of us have to cope with it. Do you have any comments for how employers should be responding or catering to their persons who may have a mental wellness issue?
It's tough because we don't know who is diagnosed or who isn't diagnosed. You know, they say there's more crazy people outside of the institutions than in it, because we don't know who is going through what or who has challenges or what. So it's a very sticky topic, but I think that there should be more resources available. There should be, you know, whether there's testing, like private testing, like if the employers would make psychotherapists available to do testing, just so people can know, at least in private, you know, what they're going through if they have any issues. Definitely start recommending resources. Like for me, one thing coming out of my own situation is I started to read a lot more about mental health. I started to pick up a lot more books to help me do further understanding into my own personality, into my own traumas, things that have affected me, because we all have trauma, right? And we're not dealing with our trauma. So I think these conversations need to be had more in the workplace, whether it is, you know, professionals coming in, doing testing, whether you're just making simple things like book recommendations, little things like that, just to start the conversations at the workplace.
And that's such great advice. There's a part of mental wellness has to do with the balance in your life. Do you eat well? Are you sleeping enough? Are you exercising? Here's a hard question for you. How is your balance?
So I think my balance is really good in 2022. If it's one thing that I use as a bit of my North Star, is creating the life where you don't feel like you have to run away from. Part of that was me moving to Trinidad. I felt stressed out beyond belief. I was going through a lot in Canada. Being here freed me up, allowed me to refocus. And then just over the years, I started to realize that a big part of stress was working in corporate. That was a big part of my stress. I no longer work in corporate. I found ways to become an entrepreneur and create a sustainable business for myself. So when I started to do self-analysis as to what are the things that are stressing me out, being in Canada, working corporate, diet, not working out, people I was surrounding myself with, every single thing at 35, I have removed. So I really don't have, at this point in my time, I don't really have any stress. Even when, you know, business is up and down, business doesn't stress me out. You know, working a 9 to 5 did, but I think at this point in my life, I'm good. I'm very happy. I mean, nothing is perfect. I could stand to lose 20 pounds. I'm in and out of the gym, and I'm trying to balance out working out with eating good and whatnot. I do better on nutrition, but I got to get better on working out and staying consistent with that. So that's really my daily challenge. But other than that, I'm very happy and I'm satisfied, and I'm just trying to figure out, you know, how to get to that next level in my life.
And what's your parting advice for anyone who's looking at this program?
So parting advice, if people want to start doing mental health, let me tell you, I'm going to recommend this book. It's called How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera, aka the Holistic Psychologist. Listen, this is a book that since she put out about 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago, I read every 6 months, because again, the amount of knowledge that she departs on people, this is a great starting point to get you to start reflecting and thinking about your life, thinking about how you were brought up. We all have trauma. And trauma shows up very differently for everybody. And I think she does an amazing job as to breaking down, you know, the different types of parents that we had, how trauma shows up, how do I fight it? And that's a great book just to get started. And then you're going to go down the rabbit hole, because I certainly have. So that's a starting point. I'd recommend How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera. Do that and go from there.
Thank you very much, Keron. Caribbean Wellness. It's a space where we talk about this and what are the things you can do. Like and share editions. Until next time, keep yourself well, keep yourself safe.